Welcome to Keep Trucking Personal, where we invite you to explore the heart and soul of our company, Kiwi Brothers Trucking. Through engaging storytelling, insightful market updates, and vibrant energy, our podcast reflects our culture, values, and achievements. Whether you're a team member or industry enthusiast, join us to build connections, foster growth, and inspire excellence. Discover why we're more than just a company. We're a community, a catalyst for positive change, and a home for those aspiring to be part of something extraordinary. The pre-trip is complete and engines ready. We're set to hit the road on the Keep Trucking Personal podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to Keep Trucking Personal. My name is Tyler Keevy and I'm your host. Today's guest is someone that is trying to change the industry for the better, to keep everyone healthy in this industry. And I think there's a big problem that we have as an industry collectively. And I want to hear from Dr. Mark Manera, the CEO of Offshift, about how you got into this industry, how you created your company, how you're helping drivers change, and really just a little bit of advice, hopefully at the end, for anyone that's interested on the ledge, wanting to tiptoe into getting healthier and living a longer life. That's the ultimate mission, right?
Yeah, Tyler, thank you so much for having me. And it's crazy. I think back, like I've been in the industry for 4 years now, and I think that we've known each other maybe for 4 years. Like you were one of the first people I met in the industry, and like we jumped on, and you're like, oh, I now have 4 kids instead of 2. So it's been a while since we talked. So yeah, it's good to catch up, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, when I met you, I don't really remember how we connected, but it was it through the truck show in Kentucky, or do you recall?
I have no clue. I came into this industry, like I can go into my background as deep as you'd like, but I didn't know a soul. I didn't know a single person in the trucking industry and the supply chain as a whole. Like I knew what a semi-truck was, but that was about as deep as I got into the industry prior. Like I'm from the medical field. And so when I first came in, like I knew I had the health and wellness part of it. And I knew I had a huge gap in a learning of like, I need to get, I say like I've gotten an MBA in trucking over the last couple of years of just like really diving deep and learning from, people like yourself at the executive and company level, but also sitting and doing drive-alongs with drivers, having hour-long conversations with drivers, and just like doing everything I possibly can do outside of getting a CDL and actually getting hired by a company to drive as a trucker to learn this industry and learn, what drivers go through on a daily basis.
So did you know anything about the trucking industry prior to, I guess, diving into it head first?
Yeah. So I was working in a PT clinic. So my background, I have a doctorate degree in physical therapy. I was working in a PT clinic here in St. Louis, and walked in a bunch of truck drivers. And it was the first time that I got to know some drivers on a personal level, got to know, the industry as a whole, and also first time seeing what 20, 30 years behind the wheel can do to someone's health. And it just threw me down this rabbit hole. And I consider myself very, very mission driven. And I felt as though throughout life, I was kind of looking for that mission, and nothing had just clicked. And there was one driver in particular who came in to the clinic less than 24 hours after having a total knee replacement. He's like wobbling in on crutches, still a little like loopy on pain medicine. And we just hit it off. And he just told me all of these crazy stories of his 38 years as an over-the-road truck driver, talked about his family of 5 and how much, he loved trucking and how that kept a roof over his family's head, but also, how much sacrifices he had to make as a driver for his family, and just shared probably a lot of big fish stories that I just ate up and just loved. And he was really the first person that got me hooked. And I'm a little bit of a research nerd as a whole. And so I dug deep into the health side of trucking because I was seeing it. This driver in particular actually had to lose 80 pounds just to have the total knee replacement because he was overweight, and his doctor refused to do the surgery unless he lost some weight. And so, hearing those stories, just having my experience from our culture of like what a truck driver is, which now looking back at it, it's like terrible. Like our culture needs to really shift what our identity of a truck driver is. But yeah, so I dug deep into some of the statistics on just drivers' health, and it was just shocked at some of the statistics I saw on the amount of obesity and diabetes and some of these other things that we can get into. But that was really the spark point of me jumping into the trucking industry. And I really haven't looked back since.
For me, I'd love anyone that's passionate, like super driven and passionate. And, part of our foundation, this podcast, and for me and for many of the books I've read, is just a passion. And once you find it, it's amazing how much energy you get from that organically, right? Like just being that motivated. And second, for me being born into the industry, it's, I'm sure, obviously much different than your entrance, right? Like you're educated on it by, holy crap, we got to help get these guys better. And then learning like, that's a lot of damage on your body if you don't take care of it. But so there's two different lenses, and it's really, really interesting to hear some statistics. And I wanted to just touch on this to kind of preface a little bit on some of how the trucking industry gets that bad image, right? But when you talk about what the truck driver can make nowadays, right? You can have somebody that can go to school for 4 years, have a degree, be in any field and still make less than an entry-level truck driver, right? So these jobs are paying well. These drivers have an opportunity to make a great earning on a yearly basis. It's just such an opportunity there. And why is the health so bad? Like, what is the challenge that makes it so hard for these drivers to prosper, right? Like usually you would picture somebody in an office level and, an educated person, your image of this, right, is somebody that's well dressed, well kept and all this. And they're trying to portray what it is. Truck drivers over here making high quality money. Is it just the truck stops that are limiting these guys and gals from having great opportunities, or what is it that you see?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of variables. I mean, anyone who's sitting behind a wheel for 11 hours a day and working up to, 13, 14-hour shifts, this lack of time is a big barrier. And then when you have that lack of time, you then add on top of it, like, you get done driving and you're mentally burnt out. And like, there's this bandwidth of, I go on a 7-hour road trip and the last thing I want to do is eat a salad and go for a run after I get done. Like I want to grab a pizza and like veg out and watch Netflix. Right. And so like thinking about that on a continual basis, thinking about this mindset of, in general, truck drivers are motivated to drive as many miles as possible, right? And so with the ELDs and all of the electronic logging, they want to maximize their time. And, for drivers, I hear all the time of, especially over the road ones, it's, I'm away from my family. I'm sacrificing already. So if I'm going to be away from my family, I need to maximize and make as much money as possible so that I can give them back that and, earn the fruits of being away for weeks at a time, potentially away from my family. And so you have this mindset of, I need to look in this microscope on a day-to-day basis of how do I maximize my miles on a daily basis? And when you do that day after day after day after day, it's really difficult to take a step back and recognize, okay, well, should I just put my health on the back burner today because I can drive a couple of extra miles, or do I pace myself and, get some physical activity in, or think about, balancing the sleeping side of things so that I can, be on a recurring schedule, or how do I navigate that? And, a lot of the drivers look up 5-10 years into their career and they're like, what the heck happened, right? Like I've just been focusing on today and maximizing today. And a lot of times it's really difficult to take that step back and say, well, what if I just focus on maximizing my 20-year career? And how do I really find that balance point of being the healthiest version of myself so that I am not allowing my health to kick me out of trucking because I can't keep up, and I can't pass my DOT physical, or God help, a stroke or a heart attack happens, or some medical emergency that forces you to retire, or just in general of you not being able to enjoy your kids, your grandkids, or even your friends and family when you're at home and on home time, or thinking about life after trucking. And so for me, it's like, how do we shift that conversation for drivers and say, look, how do we want to maximize your time and make your money when you're sacrificing away from your family, but we also need to make sure your health's a priority. So your health is not the thing that gets in your way of losing your career or not being able to enjoy the fruits of your labor when you're on home time, or, when you retire from trucking.
Yeah. So is there and I know this is probably not the right way to look at it, but is there like a box, status quo, what is considered healthy? Like, can you tell me that? Is it the type of chart when you go to a doctor and it says if you weigh this, this should be this? Or is healthy that you feel good every morning? Or is healthy that your blood pressure's 120 over 80? What is it that you see and you help these drivers try to pursue? Like, what is that?
Yeah, for us, it's a few things. Number one, it's helping them make some lifestyle changes where we're getting the baseline. So I can kind of start, I think of it as like a pyramid, right? And so like the baseline thing that we first start off with is that 50% of truck drivers don't even have a primary care doctor. So they're not going to the doctor on a recurring basis and getting an annual physical. They're not taking advantage of the medical system. They're waiting for something to happen and then them reacting and rushing to the emergency room or having to be hospitalized, which sucks for them. And it sucks also for their company because, that's very expensive to react to a health issue versus go to your doctor, get blood work, get ahead of things, have a history of all these normalizations and you basically metrics that you can track and see the basically change year over year over year. And then also, your doctor's trained to catch things early when it's super easy to treat versus when you're like, oh shoot, this bump on my back is, or I'm feeling really low. I'm just not feeling myself. I'm going to wait a couple more months. Okay, now I'm really feeling crappy. I better go to the doctor. And then it's like, man, if you would have just gone a year ago, 2 years ago when this all started, or you would have been on a recurring basis of going to your doctor, you would have built that relationship. You could have got ahead of that and you could have prevented a lot of bad things happening. So that's kind of
finding your baseline. Yeah. Find your own baseline.
Yeah, there's a lot of drivers who are struggling with maybe high blood pressure, diabetes, or even like cholesterol issues and weight management as well. And so finding ways that then if your doctor prescribes you medication, taking your medication as they prescribed you, because that is the easiest thing that you can do on a daily basis to prevent something bad going wrong, right? If you're not taking your insulin, if you're diabetic, or you're not controlling your blood pressure with, the medication that your doctor prescribed, like that's the easiest way that something terrible could, levels get out of whack and you're sent to the ER, or God, help if you were behind the wheel when some issues happen because you're not regulating your levels from the medication your doctor took. So that's like step 2 is if your doctor prescribed you a medication, let's work on at some point not having to take those medications or rely on them, but your doctor prescribed them for a purpose. So let's take them and take it on a consistent basis like they prescribed. And like, that's the best way that you can feel great and not have, your blood sugar whacked out all over the place. The final area that we work on is like lifestyle changes. So it's helping you move more, be more physically active, and it's helping you eat healthier. And for us, it's like, let's focus on not opening up TikTok, scrolling for 10 minutes, and all of a sudden you've got like 5 different diets that you're supposed to be doing, and every single one counteracts the other one. It's like, let's just focus on the basics that we all know. We all know we should be eating less Twinkies and probably more fruits and vegetables, right? We all know that at the truck stop, we should grab a protein bar instead of a Snickers bar, right? And we should probably not be drinking, 12 cans of Dr. Pepper every single day while behind the wheel, right? And so it's like, how do we focus on those basic habits that we can build into their day-to-day life and then stack on top of them over time as they just become a part of their daily routine?
It's kind of like that saying, how do you eat an elephant? And it's one bite at a time, right?
Exactly.
Like you have to start small. And it's interesting to hear, the baseline, finding your own baseline. But from my experience, right, many drivers are suspicious. There's always a suspicion like this. Somebody wants to do this for this, or this isn't, I've never done it, or my dad's never done it, or my family's never done it. So say you don't have your baseline. And for me, some of the interesting things that I've learned in this industry that really can be, like, it just, I guess health overall is sleep, right? Like before you even move your body, which is probably one of the main fundamental things to improve overall health, is getting the right amount of sleep. And I don't know about you, but I have an Aura ring, and I'm sure you're familiar with what one of those are. And I've had it now just over a year. So I've got a year of data. I've missed maybe, I can count on one hand how many nights that I haven't worn it for sleep. And it's interesting to see what impacts your sleep, your quality of sleep, and how you feel the next day. And if you eat a late meal, or if you exercise late, or just traveling, what that jet lag can do. And you can see the statistics and then recommendations on, hey, take a few minutes tonight. You don't have to do anything. It's trying to get you to build your scores up. And then that, if you think about where we're trying to head and where you're trying to head, is if you can rest well, feel good, your head's in the right space, maybe you'll be motivated to take on some of these challenges of moving your body?
100%, right? Like I honestly didn't sleep great last night, and I woke up this morning like blah, like I don't want to go. I want to sleep longer. And so like if you're, I completely agree on like step one is, how can we figure out to get you on a regular sleep routine, right? And it's tough in trucking, especially when you start having delays at shippers or just other issues where, your 10-hour clock is not at the same time every single night, right? And when that happens, like when you think about and you read all the experts from a sleep perspective, like the top things are like, go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, right? Get in a routine. It's like get a, bedtime routine that slowly gets your body like used to and regulated on like, all right, I'm going to bed. I'm going to stop, listening to heavy metal and like eating Twinkies and it's like getting your body ready to sleep, right?
Shut the Xbox off.
Yeah, exactly. Shut the Xbox off. For me, it's like stop watching The Bachelor, and it's and it's like getting your body, like telling your body, okay, I'm getting ready to sleep, and then you get into a routine, and then over time, as long as the routine's continuous, recurring, then your body like gets ready, and you fall asleep faster, and you get better into some of these deeper sleep stages better, and you recover better as well. But when you're in trucking and you've got shifts all over the place, and you're not going to bed maybe one night at 10 o'clock, the next night at 3:30 in the morning, it can be tough, right? And so I think for some people, it's let's figure out how we can, set a goal of how long you want to sleep every single night. Of instead of that 10 hour, in that 10 hours, how many of that time are you trying to sleep? Is it 5 of those 10 hours, or is it 7 of those 10 hours? Looking at that might be step one, and then from there, looking at different habits that can just get yourself prepared to sleep better, create a better sleeping environment where, if you are having to sleep during the day, getting blacked out curtains so that you can keep the truck a little bit cooler, keep light out, all these different areas.
So you've kind of probably touched base on everything, trying to build a driver up. So, because I can tell just by like how you're already equipped on that. So getting to the moving your body side, why don't you just, because like you said, you got to start small. This is not a race that has to finish today. This is a long play. You're trying to look at 20 years down the road. What does it take? So we do pre-trips, right? Or we hope that we're doing pre-trips every day, which is walking around the truck. Do you do things like that where you're like, hey, incorporate this into your day-to-day and try to do 3 pre-trips, and that's 3 times around the truck? Or what do you do to get them just moving before you're actually lifting or pulling with bands?
Yeah. So for a lot of times it's, I think about it sometimes habit stacking, right? And habit stacking can be like a sleep habit, a nutrition habit, but it also can be physical activity. And so looking at different areas of a day-to-day life of a driver where we can fit in some of these healthier physical activity routines into things that they're already doing. So is it right after they wake up? Is it during a pre-trip? Is it, during when you're fueling? Is it during your 30-minute break? Is it during, right when you put the truck into park? Is it right before bed? Like, what are these opportunities in a driver's day-to-day life where we can just not say, all right, you got to figure out how to fit an hour of working out into your day, flip your whole routine around. It's like, how can we just go out and walk around the truck for 5 minutes? How can we do some light stretching right in the back of your cab right before you go to bed, and it feels good, and it's getting you in a routine of doing something physical, right? Mm-hmm. And how can we fit these small, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes, we've got things that we've got drivers doing that's like 3 minutes, and it's just a small step in the right direction. And what happens is, all of a sudden they like, we continually surprise drivers of how impactful small changes done on a consistent basis can have on their weight on the scale, but also how they feel energy wise and just in general, how they feel throughout the day. And so for us, it's like, how do we find that starting point? And oftentimes our culture, this is outside of trucking, this is just our culture in general, has this trend when it comes to health where I'm going to go on a 30-day health challenge and I'm going to change my whole life around. I'm going to throw away every single piece of food in my pantry and only put green beans and celery into it. And I can't cheat at all. And my whole life needs to be flipped upside down. And it's like, people hold on for dear life for about like a day, 7 days, maybe 2 weeks if they're really into it, and then they fall back to square one. And mentally, that feels like a loss. And once we get into, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, you look back and a lot of people have like 20, 30, 40 different failures of trying to be healthy. And a lot of the times it's because they're setting themselves up to fail and they're being unrealistic because they're trying to change way too much, way too quickly. And for us, a lot of times the questions our coaches ask are, hey, can you see yourself doing this in a year? Like, does this fit into your daily life out on the road? And if the answer is no, then we probably need to start smaller, right? And we just need to focus on, we always say like progress, not perfection, of like getting something into your routine and doing it on a consistent basis and knowing that things are going to fall off and you're going to have highs and lows and you're not just going to say screw it and give up if you do fail, because the insider baseball of this whole health thing is it's not like this end point that you get to. It's like, how do you figure out how to get all these routines and do it for the rest of your life? Because that's how you actually like get the reward of being healthier. And so oftentimes it's let's start smaller and let's figure out what are those low hanging fruits that are easy to change, that don't really change your day-to-day life a ton. And let's start there. Let's get some wins under our belt. And then the momentum goes from there. It's kind of like the snowball rolling down the hill of like, once you start seeing some changes, you feel a little bit better. All of a sudden you're like, well, shoot, I'm doing these exercises. Like, man, I don't want to eat this whole pizza either. I better figure something out. And like it's kind of like an auto adjustment that happens.
Yeah. It's interesting when you talk about like the progress, not perfection. And so for me personally, earlier this year, I'd ran my first half marathon. I'd never done much running. I don't consider myself a good runner, and I'm not claiming to be anything special. But the progress for me was the ultimate journey. So, of course, you get the medal at the end. You feel well accomplished and you're excited. But when you look back at like I started out here, and I tried to keep a notebook or log it on my phone with various apps on like, here's my time per mile. Here's some of the exercises I was doing. And you can see the gains. And then, like you said, it all just snowballs. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I can't believe I was only doing 15 minutes of that or 20 minutes of that. Now I'm running for 3 hours and I felt fine after or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's amazing to see that progress, and it feels good and it's energizing. And there's plenty of people I tell in the morning when I wake up, I'm like, I'm just loaded right now. Like there's energy coming. I'm not drinking coffee, and just being healthier, drinking water, all of that for me has made a huge difference. And that would be something I would, if I had to go trucking, I would try to maintain that, right? Like get my water in. If my sleep schedule's all over the map, at least be diligent and understand what my last night looked like and what I need to do tonight. And that's just where my mind goes. But I do have some cool stories for us, we're a flatbed company. Yeah. So we're, not so much opening and closing van doors. We're up there chaining, moving dunnage around, putting tarps on. So our drivers get a bit of physical activity, whether they are up for it or not that day. If they didn't sleep well and they still have to get it done, that's part of the job, right? But we have a couple drivers that come right to mind. And we've had one driver that when he would park at night, he would find an Anytime Fitness because they're almost anywhere in the country, or he'd kind of plan his trip around it. Hey, I'm going to park near here, and then I'll drop my trailer, or I'll try, if they have room, I'll get in their parking lot. And he did that, and I thought that was a great story. And I've asked him to eventually be a guest on the podcast, and I'm excited to hear his story. And we have another guy I was just talking to yesterday in his truck. So doesn't have any weights, but he does 1,500 push-ups throughout the day. I mean, he's in good shape. And I'm because I was asking,
holy crap!
And he's doing all these air squats, and he's got big legs, like the size of my torso, and he's cutting. And he can build that without having, like you said, you don't need all the glamorous, like a gym membership and all these weights. And even though it'd be really nice, he does it with just his body and moving his body. And he's happy and proud of what he's done. And he's excited to do more. He's kind of like, after that 1,500, he's like, you're gassed. The next day, he's like, you're feeling it. It's
all right, here's my quick rant on gyms, because so many people think when they think about being physically active and exercising, you have to find a gym. And I think, that guy's spot on. If there's a truck driver out there who is a gym person, you're trying to get in the routine of it, Planet Fitness is 100% the best one because they're all over the nation. It seems as though a lot of them do have truck parking, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. And then you can kind of tag team a workout and a shower together, and it checks both those boxes, right? But what we've seen from all the companies that we've worked with, all these drivers that we've worked with, is that there's a large percentage of people, like not only truck drivers, but just humans in general, who are never going to go to a gym. They're not gym people. They don't feel comfortable in there, and it's just not their style, which is super cool. It doesn't mean that they can't get a great workout in or be physically active and be healthy. What we've found is we have programs for drivers that they can do right in the back of their truck, outside of their truck, or at home if they're on home time or they're home nightly. Actually, when I started this whole journey 4 years ago, right when we met, so I didn't know a single person in the trucking industry. My initial thought was like, all right, this guy in the clinic that I was working with said that Facebook groups are important, are like drivers are in a bunch of different Facebook groups. So I go into like 10 different trucking Facebook groups. For someone not in trucking, that is like the Wild West of like learning the trucking industry.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I loved it and I learned a ton. But I ended up getting 20 drivers from a couple of like all over the country, actually some up in Canada as well, who were beta testers for our first program. And when I started, I was like, all right, these drivers are like behind the wheel, like they're kind of sitting in the truck all day. Like they probably just want to get outside and do a workout every day. So like, we're going to do an outside the truck workout and I'm going to do some videos and that kind of stuff. And we got like a couple of weeks in, I'm like calling each of these drivers every week, just having a conversation, learning about like, all right, what can we do better? Like, tell me about your day-to-day life. Like, what do you think? Like any ideas you have? And there was one driver, her name's Blake. She's still a member of Offshift today. She became a really good friend of mine. Actually, I went to her wedding 2 years ago. Like it's been really cool to kind of see the progress of that. But she was like, hey, I love the workouts, but two things. Number one, there's some places I'm parked where it's not super safe for me to get out of the truck and do a workout. And then also, I'm like one of the only girls here and I just don't feel very secure / comfortable working out at the truck stop and all these people are staring at me. Like, is there any way that we can do it right in the back of my truck? Like, is there a way that I can do it in the cab? And I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Let me try it out. And so we created the Inside the Truck program, or like right in the back of the cab. We've got video and written instructions showing drivers someone doing it right in the cab. And that's actually turned out to be our most popular program. Most drivers want to do it right in the privacy of their own truck. They don't want to be the person getting stared at the truck stop, which is fine. Like that's some people's thing. And they also want to be able to do it, up in Minnesota in December and also in Florida in July when the weather is way too crazy to try to get out and do something, right? And or if it's raining, right? And so that's been our most popular thing. And we've got drivers who are doing just basic stretching routines like before bed or just in general throughout the day. We've got circuit training with different body weight exercises. And a lot of the times it's not, the craziness of 1,500 push-ups or air squats. It's like things that they can do. And with my background in physical therapy, it's really important for me to scale something back or up to fit each person's fitness level or starting point. That's really important to me. And I think it's really important to them feeling as though motivated and wanting to continually progressing in the program. And the other aspect that I've recognized is the time is the biggest barrier, like I said earlier, to all these people. So we've got programs people can do in like 5 minutes or less, 5 to 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And we found 20 minutes is a really good sweet spot as well.
Well, and I think we kind of skipped over like what your platform is, right? Like, so we know that you're in this industry trying to change it for the better. We know you've got some stair-step processes to get anyone healthier. Doesn't matter if you're on your platform or not. But what is your platform? What does that look like? I'm a driver that's never heard of Offshift, and you're getting a call from Mark today. What are you going to tell him, and how are you going to say that this is the best move?
Yeah. So what we typically do is we work with a trucking company as an employee benefit. A lot of the times, the trucking industry as a whole, all of the benefits that trucking companies have available to offer to their drivers are all industry agnostic, which really means they were built for someone who works in a cubicle and handed to a driver as an afterthought. And they really just like don't fit into their lifestyle. They don't understand the culture of the industry, and they don't speak the language, which is why like oftentimes there's this huge engagement problem where, most of these health benefits have like put a sour taste in the mouth of companies and also drivers, because like no one's using them. And when drivers do use them, they're like, this clearly doesn't understand my life out on the road. So like, I'm just going to stop using it. Right. And so we come in as a driver specific benefit and really drive engagement for the health plan as a whole. And we think of ourselves as like the top of the funnel, or like the front door into health for a driver. And we help them when they sign up. We pair them with a concierge health coach. All of our coaches know the trucking industry. They have a touch point. They've got, a part of their heart that's warm for trucking because their dad or grandpa was in it, or maybe they have a previous career history where one of our coaches used to work at a butcher shop, and he used to deal with the driver coming in every single day, and just built a really good relationship with the driver who dropped off meat every Tuesday, I think. And so like that's these touch points where like people get trucking, they understand, and they have these personal relationships with each driver. And that's a big part of the whole thing, is like, how do we build that relationship? And then we have an app on the driver's phone where the coach then creates a custom health plan for each member. And it's focused on preventative care. So it's getting ahead of musculoskeletal issues. Say a driver has an achy shoulder or a low back, and we've got, joint specific mobility programs where we can give them certain exercises and stretches to alleviate some of those issues before it turns into a bigger injury that, is a big cost for the company, and also, takes the driver out of work as well, right? And then we also help with medication adherence, which we talked about earlier, and then also lifestyle changes. So nutrition habits, physical activities, and everything that we program is, number one, time efficient, like we just spoke about, and then also environment specific. So it's things drivers can do, in the truck, outside of the truck at home, or, in the nutrition side of things at the truck stop or McDonald's attached to it.
So does your app, like, do they manually enter in all of the fitness, the tracking their meals, or is that just conversational, or how do you work through that?
Yeah, a lot of the times on the nutrition side of things, I think tracking meals can be great for a week to get like a baseline knowledge of what you eat, because a lot of the times like people don't recognize that they walk by the pantry and grab 5 handfuls of goldfish and just like you're thinking about, the last conversation you had and you just downed 500 calories and you're like, oh, I don't even remember eating that, right? And so tracking it and getting that on a routine, I think, can be good. But in general, I haven't had a lot of success long-term having people track meals. I think it can be really tough and it really easily falls off. And so what we do is like, we'll track meals, we'll have a conversation with the coach, and then we'll personalize a habit-based program for them. So that might start with, hey, let's focus on cutting down the amount of soda you're drinking. Let's switch, 2 of these sodas a day to diet sodas or a 0-calorie beverage. So we, cut out 80 grams of sugar and a bunch of calories. Or it might be, hey, Tyler, your protein every single day is like a piece of deli meat at lunch, and that's about all you're getting. Let's add some more protein in, because protein's a huge, for quality of life as you're getting older and being able to jump in and out of the truck and play with your kids and grandkids. Protein's like the number one thing that's going to stop you from, losing that quality of life and losing the muscle mass on your body. And so helping people eat more protein throughout the day, or eat more fruits and vegetables. And it's very habit-based of, on their app, they've got a checklist of things to do today. And it might say, eat 1 serving of protein at breakfast. And once they do that, they go in, click it off, their coach gets a notification, and then the coach can give them some support and accountability to say, all right, hey, awesome job, Tyler. You did that 7 days in a row. Like, does this feel good? Like, do we want to move it up, or do we want to keep working on that same habit? And then that's kind of how the coaching interactions go.
That's awesome. That accountability is huge. Having somebody having somebody on your side, right? So not only kind of nudging you forward, but they're on your side to celebrate those wins, because that's where you need that. You probably know a lot more, like a dopamine, like all those endorphins released, where you're like, we did it. Like, we knocked this week out of the park. And then I'm sure we're tracking body weight. So that's maybe your measurement to really tell if we're successful, and blood pressure too, or what?
Yeah, we think of it a couple different areas. I think step one is like, how do we get them engaged and continually engaging? And like when we're getting them to continually engage in these activities of being more physically active, eating healthier, like the health outcomes of losing weight, getting better blood work, controlling your, blood glucose levels and blood pressure, they follow, right? If you're being more physically active, eating healthier, the health outcomes are going to follow. And so the coaches focus on, hey, how do we just build a personalized program, give you the support you need and keep you going and, adjust when you hit lows and get you re-sparked up, or be there to give you a high five when, you just hit your 50th workout and off shift, and, just be your go-to person for all things health, which most people in life in general just don't have someone in their corner for that area. And so that's something that we really focus on, is building that relationship. And we found it to be almost one of the most important parts of keeping people engaged.
Your process reminds me of like our podcast name, and our fundamentals at our company is just keeping it personal. We really want to make sure that you understand who that person is. And if they have a trainer that, I mean, it's pretty special if you think about it, to have your own personal trainer, essentially, that concept, right? Like it's not somebody you have to cut it up with about work, but you can, right? It's not somebody you have to talk about home life, but you can. But they're there to make sure that you're on track and what you signed up for something, like let's see it through. Because like you said, I think that's probably the hardest part, is a lot of these fads, fad diet, fad workout, whatever, starts off real strong. They start hitting right out the gate, and then all of a sudden it dissipates. And pretty soon, if somebody's not there to tally on it and say, hey, you're slipping a little bit or you're falling behind, it just completely goes away, and it's a blemish on the radar and it's gone. And then you move on to the next one.
I completely agree. And like the other aspect is, none of our coaches are acting like this is boot camp and like saying, get down and give me 20 and like punishing you if you fall off. Like we're all adults here. Like there's no beneficial of like, being disappointed in someone for falling off because they got shifted and had to wait 5 hours at a shipper. And now all of a sudden their whole life's in a scramble. Like, we understand trucking. We understand that things are all over the place, crazy. And like, we're here to just adjust the program and figure out how can we just get you back on it. And, we're going to be your number one hype man. We're going to hold you accountable, but it's that act of coaching, of knowing when to hold your hand and knowing when to kind of shove you forward as well. Right.
Got it. So before we go on, just to kind of get into the last little bit more about you, when you talk about, you said soda, right? Picking diet over standard. What other low-hanging fruit does somebody have that's just like, I'm listening to this podcast right now, and you know what? It's time. And I'm not sure if I'm ready for the app. Let's baby step this, but can I even take on a little challenge? What is it? What are those low-hanging fruits?
Yeah. So, I mean, one big thing is like, a lot of times the drivers put the Doritos bag in the passenger seat, and they're just like, unfortunately, grab the family size one, and they're just mindlessly eating while they're driving down the road. And then about an hour in, all of a sudden, they hit the bottom of the bag. Their fingers are all like cheesy with the dust. And they're like, I just ate a whole family size bag of Doritos. What just that? So I think the step one is like looking at what you're keeping in arm's length while you're driving, right? That's like the drinks of like, drink as many 0-calorie beverages as you like, right? So if you're used to drinking Mountain Dew, I'm okay with you starting with a diet soda, right? That cuts out a ton of calories. That cuts out a ton of sugar. If you're cool with going directly to water, I'd rather you do that, right? Or going to water with like, I'm drinking right now water with like Mio, right? A little flavor enhancer that like has 0 calories, right? Or, a lot of people like sparkling water, like those types of things where it's like a 0-calorie beverage where you can just sip on it throughout the day, and you're not like taking in hundreds of calories from just what you're drinking. The other aspect is keeping healthier snacks around you while you drive, right? Especially when drivers who, a lot of the times they're eating throughout the day is whatever is in arm's reach, or whatever they, when they're rushing into the truck stop to pee, it's like whatever's close enough that I can grab and get back to my truck quickly. That's what I'm going to eat. And so for us, we give a lot of like grab and go resources of like, all right, if you're at the truck stop, like, go down aisle 5 instead of aisle 4, grab these protein bars because they're high in protein. They'll keep you fuller for longer, and they only have 1 gram of sugar. Or it's like, grab, this veggie, these veggies, or grab this piece of fruit, or grab, all of these different healthier options that every single truck stop has available for them. And so that's kind of the low hanging fruit of just swapping in some different snacks that you're grabbing, or, instead of grabbing, at McDonald's, like the supersize me Big Mac with a large Coke and large fries. It's like, let's pick the healthiest option at McDonald's. Maybe let's go with a diet soda and a small fry, right? It's like all these small micro decisions that people make on a day-to-day basis that isn't saying, all right, you need to find 30 minutes every day to cook lunch in your truck. Okay, that's just not going to be realistic.
I suppose it does probably slowly graduate to that, though, right? As the person gets more disciplined on their thoughts, like, I don't care for this food. Do you see a lot of people start to meal prep, whether it's sandwiches or crock pot or air fryer?
Yes, I think there's like this whole subculture of like truck cooking. You should get someone on the show who's like, there's some Facebook groups that are pretty cool. And I think there's a lot of drivers who are really into that. And that can be like their hobby out on the road, especially if they're over the road. I have a lot of drivers who maybe are home weekly and they're switched to like meal prepping throughout the week and keeping stuff in their fridge. And then obviously, if they're home 3 or 4 times a week or home nightly, then a lot of times they bring food out there. But, a question I jokingly ask a lot of drivers is like, are you trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Like, is your goal to be like this professional bodybuilder that's like chiseled out of your mind and like you have like the perfect body? That's not my goal, by the way. And I've only, throughout the 4 years, there's only been one driver who's told me, yes, that's my goal. Maybe it's that guy who's doing 1,500 push-ups every day. But if you're not trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, most people are just trying to feel a little bit better throughout the day, maybe lose 10 or 15 pounds and like enjoy home time more. You don't have to be this perfect 100% all the time diet and workout routine. There's a lot of the times where we can just switch up a couple of things that you're doing throughout your day-to-day routine and do it consistently, and you're going to get those results. And so that's really like our energy that we bring to conversations with drivers.
Yeah, it's so much more of just a lifestyle. Like, where do you want to live and what do you want to do? And can we help you make better decisions and move that body a little bit and give you the nudge when you need it, and celebrate those wins. I love it.
Exactly.
It's a lot of encouragement if somebody's listening that has needed that. And I was pretty excited. What was this? Probably 3 weeks ago, I was able to participate with your company, and you had a great group of people that participated in the squat challenge. Why don't you tell us about how you just decided, like, because it seemed like it blew up. Like, it was like, I felt like it was just, you had this idea and now it was everywhere.
Well, it kind of goes back to the whole thing of like we don't have to take life too seriously, right? We can have some fun. And like the topic of health, a lot of the times, like, especially in the industry, and I'll say sometimes I'm like a victim of this as well. It's like, it's always talking about some of the negative of like, oh, look at these stats, look how bad the health of drivers is. And like, I think that switching that to a more positive conversation of getting the community, building the community around like, hey, there's a lot of people who health is on the top of their mind and they're like craving for something in this industry to change and wanting health to be a part of the culture here. And I was like, Dooner, who's the host of What the Truck, that's a big podcast on FreightWaves. Him and I have known each other probably maybe as long as you and I have as well, Tyler, of just like being friends. I've gone on the show every once in a while, and about maybe 2 or 3 months ago, his dad had a heart attack and his dad recovered. He's fine, but it kind of shook Dooner a little bit. And he was like, man, I see myself going down this path. Like, I want to make a change. And I also see all these people in trucking who are kind of going down the similar path as well. And like, I've got an awesome community. I've got a bunch of people that watch my show. And like, I want to join Offshift and document my journey and do some fun things around drivers' health. So he's joined Offshift. He's working with one of our coaches. He's already down like 17 pounds and doing amazing. And we were like, how can we do some fun stuff on social media? So we built a challenge called Trucker Squat Across the Country. And our goal was to get a video of a driver doing 10 air squats in every single state of the United States. And actually, we got some people up in Canada as well, checking off some providences. And I started it in Missouri. every day we had a couple other ones, and then all of a sudden it just grew. In like literally less than 3 weeks, we got all 50 states. And I got to give a shout out to you, Tyler, of like checking off one of the hardest ones for us to get, Alaska. Yeah. So thank you very much for helping us there. But yeah, it was so cool. And if you go on my LinkedIn or on our social media, Offshift and Dr. Mark Manera, if you look that up, you can see the video of all 50. We put them all together of all 50 people in all 50 states. And it's just super cool how excited everyone in the industry was about it.
Yeah, we were excited. Like you said, that Alaska for us is such a rewarding state when a driver gets to take a trip up there. It's just the scenery and everything about it is like checking those boxes. And then when I was talking to that driver and I was like, look, there's this challenge and we'd be happy if, we'd be grateful if you do the 10 air squats and be the Alaska. And he's like, sure, no problem. And then, he finally got it done. And I was like, box checked, right? Like I was even celebrating like the win, and it's super cool.
It.
And I was super happy, and a bunch of good carriers, good people did all that. I was just happy to be involved with that. So going to you now, like you're a change agent in this industry and you're taking on a lot, right? There's 3 million plus truck drivers and you're out here spearheading this to get everyone healthier. Did you ever see yourself with all of these speaking engagements? I mean, I feel like I see you all over the place. Like you search your name and we're going to see you, like just on your own personal level. Like how does that, is it just complete crazy from where you saw yourself going, or do you have this ambition to be an entrepreneur? Because first of all, you're younger, and I'm appreciative of like we're going to be in this industry a long time. Yeah. So we got a long ways to go. We got a long way of maintaining where we're going to get and how we're going to get there. But just tell me what that feels like when you get in front of what's your biggest crowd. And for me, that's such an accomplishment, and I look up to that. Look up to you doing that.
Yeah, when I was sitting in neuroanatomy class in physical therapy school, and so if someone would have came up to me and said, you're going to present at the Nebraska Trucking Association's annual conference, I would have been like, what the hell is trucking? No, I did not think that. I've always been entrepreneurial. I've been like, I kind of have that bug inside of me. I grew up, both my parents are optometrists, eye doctors, and they had their own clinics. And so I kind of grew up watching my parents start their own business and kind of seeing the good, the bad of being an entrepreneur. And like, it was always positioned as great, right? The flexibility of being able to go to my baseball games growing up and like seeing just like the impact that being able to build a business around your life, and being able to also see, the struggles early on of making sure it gets up off the ground and some of the sacrifices you have to make. And I think inside my head, I always knew I was going to start a business and be an entrepreneur. Didn't know what path it was going to go down. Grew up in sports, playing baseball, and then got really big into fitness in high school. Wanted to knew I wanted to go in the medical field, knew I wanted to do something in fitness. When I looked at optometry, I didn't want to sit all day and say like, which one looks better, 1 or 2, 2 or 3. Like I didn't want to do that. And I joked with my dad and my mom about that as well. But I thought physical therapy was like this really good sweet spot between medical field and like health and wellness. And so I got into a program at Maryville University in St. Louis. And it's actually a unique program because it's directly out of high school. So it's 6.5 years right out of high school. My wife and I were in class together. We met freshman year. She went in the PT program as well. And then we went all through school together, and we got married between 4th and 5th year. And yeah, so it was great. And then actually when I was on clinical rotations for physical therapy school, that is when I actually got introduced to that driver in the clinic. So it actually was the spark of all of it. And it's so interesting, just like the different paths life takes you down. And like, you never know who you're going to bump into and like what that's going to spark on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and there's, so many people have their own story, right? But yours is very different. I feel like a common pathway would be to like join somewhere after you graduate and, work your way through, and maybe 10, 15 years in, kind of leap out and take your own initiative. And you just spearheaded right after it. Like no breaks. We're going after this full throttle. And like I said, this industry's grateful to have you. Like that's not just from us. Like anybody should say anybody that can champion this and spearhead it is taking a lot on. And I'm sure you've had your wins and your losses, and staying on the path is just something you're writing a book right now about, probably.
No book being written currently. I don't know about that, but I definitely, there's been a lot of ups and downs. And, I think a combination of, there's a learning curve in general of being a first time founder, right? And figuring out some of those lessons. And then you also add in a new industry that you're just kind of learning how to build your product where it actually fits into a trucking company and is not it fits into just like the culture and industry as a whole. And so, yeah, I feel as though we're really hitting our stride, but it's taken a couple of years to really learn the industry. I still have a lot to learn, but and kind of figure that all out.
I bet. Like I said earlier, there's how many millions of people, and you're trying to touch, somehow get them on your platform so they can become healthier. It's a big challenge. So before we close up, why don't you tell everyone where they can start to watch some of these videos or get to know you or maybe follow you? Because I'm sure you're on many platforms, but.
Yeah, if you look up Offshift on any social media, we're right there. And then also, if you're on LinkedIn, connect with me, Dr. Mark Manera. And then our website is offshift.ai.
Offshift.ai. Yeah, check it out. If you guys want to get healthier, you guys or gals want to dive into this, Mark's here to support you. Mark, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you being on this. And I know the next squat challenge or the next challenge you fire up, we're all going to be on board to help you with that.
We've got some things in the work and I was going to talk to you. So yes, let's make sure you and the team are involved in that. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Keep Trucking Personal. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please check out Mark on all of his platforms that he listed earlier. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. And if you have any future topic suggestions, please feel free to reach out at podcast@kiwibros.com. Until next time, happy trucking.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Keep Trucking Personal. We appreciate you taking the time to explore the heart and soul of Kiwi Brothers Trucking with us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to let us know your thoughts. Tune in next time as we continue our journey together, diving deeper into what makes us a community, a catalyst for positive change, and a home for those who aspire to be part of something truly extraordinary. Until then, keep trucking, and we'll catch you on the next episode.